Before we get back to Shabtai Tzvi and his impact in history, I want to jump a bit ahead and talk about the difference between Chasidim and Misnagdim. And you can sum it up in two words. And then, of course, there's much to learn about that. The Chasidim, for the most part, their primary focus is on dvekus. Dvekus comes from the word devek. Devek means in Hebrew glue. Dvekus means dvekus in Hashem, connecting oneself to Hashem. That is the primary pursuit of Chassidus, that every person should feel a direct connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Be dovek in Hashem. The Misnagdim, the opponents to Chasidim. Misnaged means opponent. The Misnagdim focused on shlemus, on accomplishing all one can accomplish in this world. Dveikus is nice, but it's not the ultimate purpose. The ultimate purpose is accomplishment, to fulfill one's potential, to fulfill the mission which HaKadosh Baruch Hu put one in the world, and that is the focus of that's the focus of Misnagdim. Now, the problem with the focus of Misnagdim on shlemus, on perfection, is that it doesn't speak to many people, because many people, shlemus always seems to involve intellectual accomplishment, profound, meaningful, in-depth learning of Torah, and often it includes other types of shlemus as well. And if you believe in the secular wisdom, then as many schools of thought in Judaism believe, that one should also master secular wisdom, then that also you have to accomplish shlemus in that as well. That is not, it's a tall order. It's not easy for most people to accomplish. Now, one could say that everybody else has lower expectations, and that every person is supposed to accomplish shlemus according to their level. And in fact, the Chovos Halavavos, one of the great Rishonim, the Baalei Musar, the Chovos Halavavos says that if a person regards and thinks about other people, he should always think of himself as being lower than the other people, and that way he'll become more humble. How so? If the other person is greater than he is, then of course he should be humble. He's not. As we perhaps you recall, Winston Churchill said about Clement Attlee, his adversary and successor as Prime Minister in England, Mr. Attlee is a modest man and he has much to be modest about, which is about the strongest insult I've ever heard in my life. So that means to say that, of course, you should be modest if you're modest. If the other person is a towering or even middle-sized giant, so then you should be humble. On the other hand, suppose you perceive yourself to be superior to that other person. So then you're supposed to think to yourself, well, I have greater potential than that person. And perhaps I have achieved less of my potential, which is vast, relative to his accomplishment with his potential, which is smaller. Perhaps proportionately, percentage-wise, he's accomplishing more of his potential than I'm accomplishing. So one could look at shlemus that way. Everybody has their own shlemus, and that's true. But a society which looks at shlemus as the ultimate accomplishment, looks at those people who are going to be the great shlemim as the pinnacle and the purpose of society, and not necessarily the masses who are not going to accomplish anywhere near that profound and extraordinary accomplishment. For many people, dveikus was a very, very important part of their lives, because even a simple Jew can, with the right guidance, achieve a sense of connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They can feel in their Tehillim, that when they say Tehillim, there are many Jewish women throughout the ages who said Tehillim and had no clue what the words meant. And they would cry rivers of tears because through the words they connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So one can connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu on even a simple level. And that could be, I should say like this, right? When a profound, connect Kosh Baruch Hu with dveikus on a profound level, even if one is a simple person. When Shabtai Tzvi came along, Shabtai Tzvi brought Kabbalah to the masses. What is Kabbalah? Okay, I don't think I explained this well enough yesterday. Kabbalah. Kabbalah is many things, but it means received wisdom. Why? Because you can't figure out by your own logic. It has to come from a teacher, who got from a teacher, who got from a teacher. And Kabbalah has many aspects to it. It's a very complex system, and there are many ways of interpreting it, many ways of learning it. But where Shabtai Tzvi used Kabbalah to convince the masses that he was a mystic who accomplished dveikus in Hashem, and that was why he didn't have to keep the Torah in its as it was kept till now, because his dveikus made him greater than the levels of people who have to keep Torah because they can't achieve that dveikus. So therefore he said, I, being Mashiach and having this great level of dveikus, I'm allowed to be matir isurim. I'm allowed to, and I'm encouraged to, do things which are inappropriate for a regular person because my dveikus goes beyond mitzvahs. Mitzvahs are for people who don't have full dveikus. We say in davening, "V'hora einenu b'sorasecha, v'dabek libeinu b'mitzvosecha." Illuminate our eyes in Ahava Rabbah, before Shema. Illuminate our eyes in Torah, and let our hearts cling, be davek in mitzvah. So mitzvahs are a tool for dveikus, to connect to Hashem. The language of mitzvah in and of itself, according to many commentators, is related to the word tzeves. Mitzvah tzeves. So tzeves means to join together, to be connected. So mitzvah helps you to be davek. But Shabtai Tzvi said, I don't need it. I already have that dveikus. I don't need the mitzvahs for that purpose. So the idea of mystical connection to Hashem, feeling a profound connection to Hashem through focusing one's thoughts, focusing one's emotions on HaKadosh Baruch Hu, was a very attractive idea. And that was something which survived Shabtai Tzvi's death. This idea of accomplishing dveikus in Hashem. And therefore we have a very fascinating phenomenon, which is that after Shabtai Tzvi's death, there are still Sabbateans. Sabbeteans. Sabbateans believed, some of them, that Shabtai Tzvi was going to come back as Mashiach. Again, you're going to be brought back from the dead as Mashiach. Particularly, they anticipate that would happen in the year 1706, 40 years after he converted to Islam. There were some people who believed that he was going to come back as Mashiach. Other people believed that he was not necessarily going to come back as Mashiach, but he brought down this idea of dveikus to Hashem, which is a powerful idea, which they thought they should be able to accomplish and be able to sustain in this world in the spirit which he brought down. So, whether you believe Shabtai Tzvi was Mashiach or not, you could still be a Sabbatean and follow Shabtai Tzvi after his death. And there are many Sabbateans who didn't keep Torah and mitzvahs, just like Shabtai Tzvi didn't. But there are other Sabbateans who kept Torah mitzvahs, and they were kind of modified Sabbateans. And they, not only that, some of them became very, very much involved in holy deeds, such as fasting, refraining, keeping away from gashmius, for long hours of tefillah, long hours of meditation. And still, they believed that this is what Shabtai Tzvi brought down and something which they were continuing. So there was a very big danger in Shabsos, because in the Shabsos meaning Sabbateanism, it's called the Hebrew Shabsos. The Sabbateans had Sabbateanism. By the way, people to this day who are anti-Semitic believe that all Jews are really, some of them believe that all Jews are really followers of Shabtai Tzvi, the false Messiah, till this day. So Sabbateans have Sabbateanism. Okay? So there was another thing here which happened because of Shabtai Tzvi, which until now really did not exist as a major issue in Am Yisrael, which is the focus on Mashiach. And Mashiach being the person who's going to mystically uplift the entire world to this level of Dveikus and Hashem. Until Shabtai Tzvi came along, Am Yisrael, the Jewish people in Golus, were not so concerned with bringing Mashiach. They figure Mashiach will come when he comes. The Gemara says there are three things which come when you're distracted, when you're not expecting them. Nachash, Mitzia, and Mashiach. I'm sorry, Akrav, Mashiach. Mitzia, Akrav, and Mashiach. Something which you lost, you only find when you're not looking for it. And a scorpion only bites you when you're not looking for the scorpion. And Mashiach only comes when you're not looking for Mashiach. And the Gemara says one is not supposed to focus on the coming of Mashiach. But Shabtai Tzvi introduced this idea of Mashiach as the salvation for all our problems. And not only that, the person who's going to elevate the entire world and connect it to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that remained as a message which was embedded in Am Yisrael, even those who were disappointed by Shabtai Tzvi and did not follow him. But this idea of striving for a leader who's going to be a Mashiach in the sense of leading the world to a greater level, that remained in Am Yisrael, in the Jewish people, even after Shabtai Tzvi converted and even after he died. So again, in the early 18th century, that means the 1700s, there were the Sabbateans all over the place. And of course, most Rabbanim were very, very upset at this. And they said, we were tricked, we were duped. And these Sabbateans, they're dangerous. Because, again, many of them would subscribe, if they didn't do it actually, could theoretically be people who felt that their mitzvahs are no longer needed. And they could focus on a leader who might then lead Am Yisrael astray and claim he's Mashiach. Either the Shabtai Tzvi resurrected or Shabtai Tzvi's neshama come back to earth in a Gilgal. It was very scary that where Shabsos might lead. So therefore, people, the Chazal, the rabbis in the early 1700s banned people from learning Kabbalah. And that were the tradition, which is well known, not learn Kabbalah till one's 40, comes from that period of time because they're afraid of another Shabtai Tzvi. And there was one person who suffered greatly from this, among others, was Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, who was known in Hebrew as the Ramchal. Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, Ramchal. And he wrote one of the most famous Musar Sfarim in history, the Mesilat Yesharim. And someday you'll probably learn it. And he wrote other Sfarim. The second most famous sefer is Derech Hashem. So he was born in 1707 and he died in 1747. He wasn't yet 40, or he was exactly 40. He could not publish his form during his lifetime. And he had many opponents during his lifetime because he did study Kabbalah. There were still people, obviously, who studied Kabbalah, even though some rabbis forbade it, other rabbis still did it. But he could not publish his form. His form always was published after his death because, again, even though he was learning Kabbalah, he was forbidden to publish until he was 40. And therefore, the great impact which he could have had during his lifetime, he only had after his death. So that is what's happening in Eastern Europe in the early 1700s. I'm going to finish for tonight because it's only 15 minutes. I want to wish everybody good Shabbos. And we're going to Mirza Hashem next week, bridge from Shabsos to Chassidus versus Misnagdus. Remember, Dveikus versus shlemus. Very important.